Hello, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. It's so good to see you today. My name is Vix, if you didn't know already, and this is my channel, Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. It seems so long ago that May was over, but better late than never. It's finally time to say goodbye and round up the whole month with a muster of all the books I read, which were the top 3 of the month, and what was the best or worst surprise. Shall we put them in some kind of order? Let's get on with it then. So I will run through the books in the order I read them with a very brief synopsis, the format I read them in and what star rating I gave. The links to the week's wrap-ups are above and below, and at the end I will pick my top 3 of the month and what surprised me the most, either good or bad. So in May I read 16 books, starting with Wyngraf issue 1, edited by Nathaniel Webb. I got a digital copy of this. This is a kind of volume of short, cosy fantasy stories. There are currently 2 of these collections available to purchase and are probably quite a good way to experience the genre if you are new and just want a little taster. I thought this was a pretty good issue, with I think 3 or 4 of the stories in here that were of note, and I gave it 3 stars. The Hollow Boy by Lockwood & Co. number 3 by Jonathan Stroud, I gave this 4 stars and I read it physically. This was a fantastic novel in the series and probably my most enjoyable so far. The characters were getting developed nicely and the stories are maybe getting a little darker, which is always a bonus. I am really enjoying this middle grade. Is it middle grade or is it YA? Whatever it is, I'm enjoying this series. It's really growing on me as I get further into it. So in this one they get a new member of the team and they get a call out to a particularly creepy and very dangerous job at a haunted department store. Eric by Terry Pratchett, the Discworld book number 9. I gave this one 3 stars and read it physically. I do seem to have my favourite sub-series of the Discworld books, and I'm learning that about me. So in this one, Eric, a not very nice character, I didn't think, summons up Rincewind, the useless wizard, instead of a demon who he hoped would grant all of his wishes, and the luggage has to come and save the day. Obviously, the Rincewind sub-series is not one that I enjoy. The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. I did read this originally on ebook, but I have since been and purchased a physical copy, and I totally loved this and gave it 5 stars. This is about the fictional life of a very young girl and the whys and wherefores of how she became a child killer and her life after leaving her institution of imprisonment. The Haunting of Alejandra by B. Castro. I read this one on ebook and I gave it a very generous 3 stars. I really didn't like this book and it annoyed me in a variety of ways. This is about a woman called Alejandra and the generation of women in the family before her and the relationship they had with the folk legend of La Llorona, how it has been prevalent in the women's lives as the depression and loneliness. Bethany Chiller by Stephen Deighan. I read this also on ebook and I really should have heeded the ratings on Goodreads because I too only gave this 1.5 stars. It just didn't deal with teenage girls very well. I feel that they were over-sexualized and just inappropriate. But the premise of the story is that after a brutal assault on her 16th birthday, Bethany is confronted by a demon who would like nothing more than to get revenge on the boys that attacked her. And indeed, justice was dealt. Moving Pictures by Terry Pratchett, Discworld book number 10, again another ebook and another medium rating of 3 stars. This one was a parody of the golden age of Hollywood with the invention of the moving picture and creating the first celebrities of the disc, and unfortunately they also bring some other forces into the world too. all of those classic monsters. The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was read physically and I gave it 4 stars again. It lost some marks for all that singing and nonsense, but I did enjoy it. A Time of Contempt by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the Witcher book number 4. I read this physically and gave it another middle of the road 3 stars. I was really looking forward to reading about The Witcher in a longer form, but now I'm thinking I might have preferred the shorter stories after all. This is a lot about Ciri and her being passed from teacher to teacher, first learning the ways of the witches and then under the wing of the sorceresses, Triss and then Yennefer. I did actually enjoy the relationship between her and Yennefer though. Daphne by Josh Malerman. I gave this quick little folklore urban legend book 3.5 stars and I read it in the digital form just for a change. This was a particularly good book about the school's basketball team and the urban legend of the past member Daphne, who was bullied and rumoured to seek revenge for her death on the current year's school team. And how, after hearing the story on the night before the final match of the season, Daphne gets manifested into existence and members of the team start to perish one by one. The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. Again, read on ebook, but I have since been and got a physical copy. This is an epic tale of time and friendships and libraries. So we get told the lives of 2 main characters. Each discovers the presence of the other. They're connected somehow, but how can they meet the other one when they are both trapped in the same library? I gave this 4 stars. A Faint Cold Fear by Karin Slaughter, the Grant County book number 3. This one I read in real book form. This was the usual dark thriller with our 3 recurring characters, Sarah Linton, Jeffrey Tolliver and Lena Adams. This time we go to the university campus where an apparent suicide has happened. Obviously it's not going to be as straightforward as that, and when one of the main characters loses a family member while they're investigating, it makes finding the killer even more personal, and I gave this 3 stars. The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. I read this originally on ebook, but I loved it so much that I bought a physical copy and I gave this one 5 stars. This is one hell of a road trip. A man down on his luck and with nothing left to lose takes his drug addict friend up on his offer of a drug heist during a huge drug smuggling with some pretty nasty bad guys. Along the way, things get very dark and horrific indeed. Ascension by Nicholas Binge, a cosmic sci-fi that I read on ebook. I gave this 4 stars. A mountain appears in the Pacific Ocean overnight and a bunch of scientists are employed to find out where it came from and why. Coraline, book 5 in the year of Gaiman, read this physically. This was a fun, creepy middle grade book about a girl who discovers another world through a door in her flat one day. In this other world is another mother and father who want her to stay with them and even have the buttons ready for her eyes. I gave this 4 stars. And then finally, book number 16, Malevolent 7 by Sebastien de Castell. Again, I read this on ebook, but have since been and got a physical copy. I gave this 4 stars. This is a sarcastic, self-aware, humorous, poking fun at the fantasy genre with very adult wit. This is told from the point of view of the bad guys. This unlikable bunch of anti-heroes are employed to kill the worst 7 mages on the continent. So that's all of the books. But what made it to the top 3 of the month then? Play some tense music and I'll have a think. Boop. In 3rd place, I'm going to put Hollow Boy. I loved this instalment and I cannot wait to get to the next ones. I just have to source some cheap copies to add to the rest of the collection. In 2nd place, Now, in any other month, this would have been the most outstanding book I've read, but unfortunately it just got pipped to the top, and that's The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias, a very deserving winner of the Bram Stoker Award for the best novel this year, and it was my favourite to win the trophy too. So what beat my favourite horror of the month? It just had to be the book I couldn't put down, The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. This book is gripping and heartbreaking and horrific and horrible. One of those scenes that you just can't take your eyes off for a second. From those opening first words of "I killed a little boy today" to the last full stop, I was captivating. So that is the reason it got my best of the month. But what was the biggest surprise? It's got to be The Haunting of Alejandra by B. Castro, but it wasn't in a good way. It was a bad way. I mean, did Castro peak too soon with Goddess of Filth or what? It was such a disappointment. So that is it. May is officially over for me now. How was your month of reading? I hope you had more hits than I did. What a month of medium and mediocre reads. Still, it's done with now. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really do appreciate your company. Don't forget to like if you did like it, and subscribe if you want to stick around for a little bit longer. So I always like to leave you with a quote about the month we have left behind. At last came the golden month of the wild folk. Honey, sweet May, when the birds come back and the flowers come out, and the air is full of the sunrise scents and songs of the dawning year. Make some good book choices this week, my friends, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time. Bye bye bye.